Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mr. Storyteller. Before you dive into tonight's nightmare, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now, get comfortable and relax.
The rain hit the windshield in heavy, rhythmic pulses as Evelyn drove down the desolate stretch of Route 6. The sky was a bruised canvas of purple and black, lit sporadically by flashes of distant lightning. Her hands were clenched on the steering wheel, knuckles pale, eyes fixed on the wavering lines of the road ahead. It was just past midnight, and she had hours left before she reached the small town where her sister lived. She hadn't meant to be driving this late, but a wrong turn off the interstate had landed her in this forgotten backroad hell. Her phone had died, and the GPS in her aging sedan was useless. There was no signal out here anyway, only the endless trees pressing close to the sides of the road, like silent watchers. Evelyn's headlights caught movement up ahead, a figure on the side of the road. As she got closer, she saw it was a man. He wore a dark hoodie, soaked through, the hood pulled low over his face. He had one thumb extended in the universal gesture of desperation. She slowed, her heart lurching in her chest. Don't pick him up. The thought came unbidden, irrational. Still, she hesitated. He looked up then, and their eyes met. His face was pale, hollow, his eyes dark and unreadable. But something in his expression wasn't threatening. It was sad, lost, human. She pulled over. The man approached slowly. As he opened the door, a sudden gust of wind swept rain inside. "Thank you," he said, voice hoarse. "I've been out here a long time." "Where are you headed?" she asked. He slid into the passenger seat and closed the door. "Just up ahead, a few miles." Evelyn nodded and put the car into drive. They rode in silence for a long while, the wipers slapping against the glass. He didn't say much, didn't even look at her. Just stared ahead like he was watching for something. She glanced at him again. Something about his presence was wrong. It wasn't just his silence or the way his clothes seemed older than they should be. It was a chill in the air, creeping in from his side of the car, a wrongness that made her stomach tighten. She tried to brush it off. "So, what happened?" she asked finally. "Car breakdown?" The man turned his head slowly toward her. His lips curled slightly, but it wasn't quite a smile. "You could say that," he murmured. "Accidents happen on this road." She felt a prickle of unease creep down her spine. "What kind of accidents?" He looked out the window again. "The kind that leave pieces behind. Sometimes people don't make it. Sometimes they do. But not all of them find their way home." Evelyn laughed nervously. "You're not trying to scare me, are you?" "No," he said. "You're not the one who should be scared." The air in the car dropped 10 degrees. Evelyn blinked, and when she looked at the seat beside her, it was empty. The man was gone. Her car swerved violently as her heart leapt into her throat. She gasped and fought the wheel, barely keeping from running off the road. The passenger door was still closed. There was no sign that anyone had been there. The seat wasn't even wet. She pulled over, breathing hard. She sat in silence, her breath fogging the glass. It had to be stress. Fatigue. A hallucination. But then her rearview mirror caught movement. She turned, slowly, and saw the man again, standing in the middle of the road behind her, face pale and twisted into something almost unrecognizable, something not human. His eyes were black, endless pits, and his mouth moved silently, lips shaping words she couldn't hear. Evelyn screamed and floored the gas. The car jolted forward, tires screaming. When she glanced back, the road was empty again. She didn't stop driving for miles. Eventually, a small diner appeared, lit by a flickering neon sign that read "Open" in blinking red letters. Desperate for warmth, answers, anything, she pulled in and parked. Inside, the place was near empty. A bored waitress glanced up from behind the counter. Country music played faintly on a dusty jukebox in the corner. Evelyn slid into a booth, still shaking. The waitress approached, chewing gum lazily. "You okay, hon?" I saw something," Evelyn stammered. "I picked up a hitchhiker and he just disappeared." The waitress stopped chewing. "What road were you on?" "Route 6. A silence fell. A man at the end of the counter looked up sharply. "You picked up the hitchhiker on Route 6. Evelyn nodded. The waitress exchanged a glance with the man. He stood, came over. He was older, weathered, with tired eyes. "You're lucky you made it here," he said quietly. "Most don't." "What are you talking about?" He pulled up a chair, lowered his voice. "That road's haunted, has been for decades. Back in the 70s, a family died there, head-on collision. Their car caught fire. No one survived, except for one boy. He got thrown from the car, wandered off into the woods, never found. People say he still hitchhikes that road, the waitress added, looking for a way home, but there's something wrong with him. He's not just a ghost. He's something darker. The man leaned closer. He chooses people. Some vanish. Others just lose themselves. Their minds, their souls. They say if he gets in your car and you let him stay long enough, he takes you with him. Evelyn swallowed. But he disappeared. He didn't stay. You got away, the man said. But if he's shown himself to you, it's not over. He doesn't give up. Evelyn left the diner shaken, her mind whirling. She didn't believe in ghosts. She didn't believe in any of this. And yet, the drive to her sister's place was uneventful, but her hands stayed clenched on the wheel the whole time. When she finally arrived, the relief that washed over her was so powerful she cried in her sister's arms. She tried to forget, but the dreams started. In them, she was back on Route 6, the man beside her, whispering in her ear, his voice like wind through dead leaves. "You belong here now. Stay with me." She woke gasping, heart pounding. Every night, the dreams grew worse, and then things started happening during the day. Lights flickered, electronics malfunctioned. She saw the man's reflection in windows, in mirrors, always standing just behind her. One morning, she found her car door open, muddy footprints on the passenger side. Her sister begged her to see someone. Evelyn agreed, but not a doctor. She returned to the diner. The man from before, his name was Carl, met her again. This time, he brought her to a small house just off the main road. Inside was an old woman who went by the name Mags. She burned herbs, chanted in a language Evelyn didn't understand. "You let him in," Mags said, her eyes clouded with cataracts, but somehow still piercing. "He marked you. You can't just ignore it. He's part of you now. Unless you send him back." "How?" Evelyn asked. "You have to return to the road. You have to face him. But this time you don't run." Carl handed her something, a small silver talisman on a leather cord. "Wear this. It's not protection. It's a key. When the time comes, you'll know." That night, Evelyn drove back to Route 6. She waited. Hours passed. The road was silent, the forest thick and oppressive. Fog coiled in the trees like fingers reaching toward her. Then movement. The hitchhiker stepped onto the road. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She unlocked the door. He climbed in without a word, the car filled with cold. She drove, heart pounding. "You came back," he said, almost surprised. "I want to help you," she said. "You don't have to keep doing this." He laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. "I'm not the one who's trapped." Evelyn clutched the talisman. "Then show me where it happened." The world around her twisted. The road shimmered. Suddenly she was in another time. Flames lit the sky. A car was overturned in the ditch, burning. Screams pierced the night. She saw him, just a boy, crawling away from the wreckage, bloodied, sobbing. She moved toward him, reached out. I'm here. I see you." His eyes met hers, and then everything exploded into black. She woke on the roadside, the talisman warm in her hand. The air was still, the night quiet. The man was gone. She never saw him again. The dreams stopped, the mirrors stayed clear, but she never took Route 6 again. And sometimes when the night is just right and the road is empty, a lone figure stands on the side waiting for someone who will stop.
Story number 2.
The fog rolled low over the cemetery, curling around the cracked headstones like smoke from the mouths of the dead. The air was heavy with the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a single owl called out, its hoot echoing off granite and iron. The place felt older than time itself, as though the trees had watched every burial and whispered over every coffin. Madeline Parker pulled her coat tighter around her and flicked on her flashlight. She stood just beyond the rusting wrought iron gate of Elderbrook Cemetery, a place her family had warned her about since she was a child. Not just because of its isolation deep in the woods, or the dozens of unmarked graves that slumped into the soil like forgotten prayers, but because of what had happened there. She stepped inside. Her boots crunched on the gravel path, and behind her, the gate creaked in the wind. Madeline had grown up in the nearby town of Whitlow, and like most kids in the area, she'd heard the stories of people going missing in the cemetery, of strange lights at night, of voices whispering just behind your ear. But tonight wasn't about legends. It was about truth. Madeline was a journalist now, just back from the city after her mother's sudden passing. Sorting through old family papers, she'd found something strange, an old weathered journal belonging to her great-grandfather. In it, he detailed his work as a caretaker of Elderbrook Cemetery from 1928 to 1956. He had written about a black crypt that stood where no crypt should, that appeared on foggy nights and disappeared by morning. He wrote of hearing screams from the earth and seeing the same figure, a woman in white with black eyes, wandering between the rows of graves, night after night. But strangest of all, in the final entry, he had written, "It's calling me now. The crypt wants me. If I do not return, do not come looking. Do not step into the fog. The dead remember." Madeline had to know if any of it was real. She passed rows of aging tombstones, names faded or completely lost. The deeper she went, the thicker the fog became. Her flashlight flickered once, twice. She tapped it, but it didn't stop the gnawing dread curling in her stomach. Then she saw it. It stood at the far end of the cemetery, just where the woods pressed against the fence. A crypt, black stone, slick and wet-looking in the mist, with no name, no markings, no sign that it belonged to anyone. The door was slightly ajar. Madeline approached slowly, breath shallow. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back. The air around the crypt was colder, not just the kind of cold that made you shiver, but a biting, unnatural chill that seeped into her bones. She reached for the door. It opened with a groan that sounded almost like a moan of pain. Inside, it was pitch black, the air thick and musty with rot and something older, something metallic, like blood. She stepped inside. Her flashlight illuminated a narrow staircase spiraling downward, cut into raw stone. She hesitated, then began to descend. Each step echoed as if the walls were listening. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, and beneath it, the faintest sound, like whispering. When she reached the bottom, the air was still. The room was larger than it should have been, too vast to exist underground unnoticed. The stone floor was lined with what looked like ritual carvings, and in the center, a large stone slab rested atop a raised dais. Chains were bolted to the floor around it, rusted but thick. There was a body. No, not a body. A figure. It looked like a woman, her skin waxy and pale, long dark hair spread out beneath her. Her eyes were open, completely black. She did not breathe. Yet Madeline couldn't shake the feeling that she was alive. A whisper slithered through the room. "Madeline?" She spun. No one. The whisper came again, closer, all around her now, as though the very air spoke her name. "Blood of blood. Come home." The woman on the slab sat up. Madeline stumbled backward, heart thundering. The woman moved with unnatural grace, her joints bending too smoothly like a puppet on strings. Her mouth didn't move, but the whisper filled the space. The line was broken. The keeper failed. "Now you must serve." "What are you?" Madeline rasped. The black-eyed woman tilted her head. "I am the hunger of the forgotten. I am the pact sealed in shadow. Your blood binds you." Madeline looked around, trying to understand. Her great-grandfather had written about this. He had served something, this thing. A guardian, perhaps, or a jailer. "I didn't agree to anything," she said. "You can't make me." The crypt trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. The carvings on the floor began to glow faintly, and a shape formed in the stone behind the dais, an arched doorway pulsing with sickly green light. He tried to resist. He fed me instead. The woman reached out, and Madeline saw now that her fingers were tipped with nails like obsidian daggers. Madeline ran. She bolted up the stairs, flashlight bobbing wildly. Behind her, the whisper turned into a shriek, an unholy sound that split the air like thunder. She burst from the crypt to sight the door slamming shut behind her on its own. But the cemetery had changed. The fog was thicker, impenetrable. The path was gone. The headstones now stood in different places, twisted at unnatural angles. Some were cracked open, as if whatever lay beneath had clawed its way out. And the whispers hadn't stopped. She ran, weaving between graves, heart hammering, mind screaming for escape. Shapes moved in the fog, pale forms with hollow eyes and gaping mouths, reaching for her with broken fingers. She stumbled, fell hard onto the wet grass, and felt something beneath her shift. A hand emerged from the soil, clutching at her ankle. She screamed and kicked free, scrambling back. The hand belonged to a corpse, half risen from its grave. Its eyes were wide with terror, not malice, as if it too was trying to flee. Madeline staggered up and ran until the gate appeared. Tall, black, unwelcoming. She shoved it open and crossed through. Instantly the fog thinned. The night air returned to normal. The whispering stopped. The cemetery behind her stood still, silent. But the black crypt was gone. She made it back to her car and drove, not stopping until she reached her childhood home. She locked the doors, turned on every light, and sat awake until morning. But sleep brought no peace. She dreamed of chains, of dark places, of a woman with black eyes smiling with broken teeth. Her great-grandfather appeared in the dreams too, pleading with her, screaming that it was too late. Over the next days, strange things began to happen. Objects moved on their own. Her phone buzzed with static-filled voicemails, whispers speaking her name, shadows pooled in corners and lingered. She saw the woman from the crypt standing in the mirror, closer each time. Madeline researched everything she could find, old town records, occult texts, cemetery registries. She uncovered fragments of a ritual, binding a spirit of hunger into the earth like an ancient practice to keep something darker from slipping through the cracks of the world. The price was always blood, a guardian bound by bloodline. Her great-grandfather had taken the role, but he had failed, and now it had passed to her. The final straw came one night when her bedroom walls bled. Thick, dark fluid seeped from the plaster, pooling on the floor. Whispers rose like steam, and when she turned to run, she found herself back in the cemetery, standing at the foot of the black crypt. This time she didn't run. She opened the door, descended into the dark, and stood before the dais. The woman was waiting. Madeline held the journal in one hand, the other clutching an iron dagger she had found hidden in the cemetery caretaker's shed, its hilt engraved with old protection sigils. "I'm not your jailer," she said, "and I'm not your sacrifice." The woman stepped forward. The glow from the carvings brightened. "You are nothing," the voice hissed. "Your blood sings our name." Madeline raised the dagger. "Then I'll rewrite the song." She plunged the blade into the stone slab, not into flesh, but into the very center of the ritual circle. The earth shook. A scream unlike anything mortal erupted from the woman as the sigils flared white-hot. Cracks spiderwebbed across the walls of the crypt. The chains rattled violently, then snapped. The figure writhed and convulsed, face twisting, black eyes shattering like glass. Light burst from her chest as the crypt itself began to collapse. Madeline ran, the world crumbling around her. She barely made it out before the entire structure imploded into the earth with a sound like a sigh. Then silence. The fog lifted for good. Back in town, the dreams stopped. The whispers faded. No more strange lights in the cemetery. No more missing people. Elderbrook Cemetery was just a cemetery again. Madeline visited her great-grandfather's grave a week later. She stood in silence, a small iron dagger around her neck, a reminder of what lay beneath and what she had faced. When she turned to leave, the breeze carried a single whisper on it. Gentle, not threatening.
Story number 3.
I never meant to find the Marrow Room. It wasn't a site anyone stumbled across casually, not even in the blackest corners of the dark web. You had to know it existed, and even then, it didn't want to be found unless you were already marked. My name is Levi Harris, and I'm a cybersecurity analyst by trade, paranoid by nature. I'd been exploring the dark web for years, mostly chasing down black hat groups and sniffing out ransomware schemes for clients. But I was always drawn to the mythos, the forbidden rabbit holes. Secret forums, cursed games, encrypted chat rooms, whispering about human experiments and things far worse. Most were hoaxes, urban legends given life by code and imagination. But the Marrow Room wasn't a hoax. I wish it was. I first heard of it from a defunct IRC channel, nothing more than a screen name dropping cryptic warnings before logging off permanently. Do not enter the Marrow Room. It sees you. That was it. A few nights later, after following a trail of abandoned onion links and corrupted archives, I found it. The landing page was bone white, minimal. No text, no images, just a single black button in the center that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. I hovered over it. My mouse trembled slightly. Every instinct told me to close the tab. Instead, I clicked. The screen blinked once, then everything changed. Suddenly, I was looking at a live feed. A dimly lit room. The walls a mottled gray, almost organic. At the center stood a chair bolted to the floor. Restraints hung from its arms and legs. A figure sat in the chair, hooded, breathing heavily. A muffled whimper escaped their mouth. A chat box appeared below the stream. A message popped up, not from me, but from someone. "Welcome, Levi." My blood ran cold. I hadn't used my name anywhere. I was on a VPN using layers of spoofed IPs. I typed, "Who is this?" Another message. "You're inside now. You were invited. The camera zoomed in slightly. The figure in the chair began to struggle. Watch. The lights in the room flickered. A door opened to the right. Something walked in. I can't describe it perfectly. It looked vaguely human, but tall, impossibly thin, with arms that hung to its knees and fingers like surgical tools. It had no face, only a smooth expanse of skin where features should have been. It moved silently, gliding across the floor. The restrained figure screamed as the creature reached into their chest, through it, like the skin was water, and pulled something out. It was black, veined, twitching. The feed distorted. The screen flickered with bursts of static and color inversions. My heart pounded. Then the screen went black. A message blinked on the chat box. Now it knows you. I slammed my laptop shut, my mouth dry, heart hammering. I hadn't felt fear like that in years. This wasn't some ARG or viral horror experiment. Whatever I'd just seen, it was real. I spent the next hour scrubbing my system, deleting logs, tracing network connections, scanning for malware. I didn't find anything. And yet, something felt wrong. It was like the air around me had changed, denser, heavier. That night, the dreams began. I saw the room again. The chair. The figure. But this time, I was in the chair. The creature came for me. I woke screaming, drenched in sweat, clawing at my chest. There was a bruise over my sternum, dark and blooming like a handprint. My heart felt like it skipped every third beat. I tried to rationalize it, sleep paralysis, psychosomatic response, but the dream came again the next night, and the one after. Every time, it got closer. I couldn't move in the dream, just scream as it reached out, fingers piercing through me, cold and painless, but real. I stopped sleeping. 3 days in, I found a forum post, anonymous, buried in a defunct security board, describing the exact same experience. I clicked into the marrow room, thought it was fake. Then the dream started. It's not a sight, it's a summoning. It takes something from you every night. Your memories, your health, your soul. Get out while you still can. The thread ended abruptly. I tried everything. I wiped my drives, reinstalled the OS, bought a new laptop, changed networks, even left town for a week, staying in a hotel miles away from home. The dreams followed. One morning I woke to find my nose bleeding, my gums blackened. My chest ached constantly. My reflection looked hollow, like something was eating me from the inside. I saw it again, awake this time. Middle of the night. I went to the bathroom. The mirror was fogged from the shower, but as I wiped it clean, I saw it behind me. Tall, faceless, waiting. I spun around. Nothing. But the floor was wet, and there were black handprints on the wall. I started seeing things in the real world. The marrow room wasn't contained to a screen anymore. Shadows shifted when I wasn't looking. Static followed me on every screen, every speaker. Voices whispered from drain pipes and vents. Then, the deaths began. First was Alex, a former colleague of mine who once ran penetration tests on darknet networks. I hadn't spoken to him in a year, but his name stuck in my mind. I looked him up. Dead. Aneurysm, they said. Found in his apartment, the eyes wide open, mouth frozen mid-scream, a single word scratched into the wall beside him, marrow. Then Mia, a digital forensics expert. Suicide. Left no note, just a file on her desktop with a corrupted image. I ran analysis. It was a screenshot of the same livestream I'd seen. And then Michael, a black hat who bragged about unmasking secret dark web cults. He disappeared. Completely. I stopped checking after that. I started documenting everything. Journal entries, video logs, voice memos, anything to leave behind proof, because it was clear I wasn't going to survive this. But then something strange happened. The dream stopped. For 5 nights, I slept without the creature. No chair, no black room, no pain. I thought maybe I'd broken the link. Escaped until the 5th night. I was back in the room, but not in the chair. This time, I stood beside it, watching, and in someone else. A boy, young, maybe 16, trembling, blindfolded, his mouth gagged. I screamed, but no sound came out. I tried to move, but couldn't. I was paralyzed, forced to witness. The creature emerged, slow, deliberate. It looked at me and then at the boy. It reached into him, slowly, extracting something. Then it placed it in my hands, a heart still beating. I woke vomiting blood. That day, I found a new email in an encrypted folder I hadn't created. Welcome to the cycle, Levi. One must be taken. One must be spared. There was a link, live feed, the boy, in the chair. A message below the screen. Choose. Another box appeared. Feed. I stared at it, hands trembling. I didn't click. I closed the tab. It reopened on its own. The options blinked. Choose, Levi. I screamed through the laptop across the room. It shattered. The lights went out. Everything was silent until my phone buzzed. No number, just a notification. It's still waiting. I packed a bag and fled. Left my apartment, rented a cabin off-grid, no internet, no cell service. I brought books, candles, anything to stay disconnected. It found me anyway. The first night, the TV turned on its own. No signal, just snow. Then a face appeared in the static. Not the faceless creature, but the boy. Eyes wide. Silent. He mouthed one word, please. I screamed. I unplugged everything. No electricity after that, but it didn't matter. The dreams returned. More vivid, more painful. I wasn't watching anymore. I was helping, holding the victims down, feeding them to the thing. I tried to kill myself on the third day, slashed my wrists in the bathtub, but the water never turned red. My skin refused to break. It wouldn't let me die. That night, the voice came again. You are marrow now, until the next arrives. I didn't sleep again, just waited. Then, one night, the laptop I destroyed was back. Pristine, sitting on the kitchen table. Its screen glowed. A feed was open. Another person, another chair, another chance to choose. I screamed and ran into the woods, barefoot, half mad. The police found me the next morning, babbling about things they didn't understand. They hospitalized me, sedated me. I told them everything. They smiled, nodded, thought I was insane. They gave me a room with a bed and a TV in the corner. The first night, it flicked on. The feed was waiting. Another chair, another soul. And underneath, in blinking red text, choose.
Story number 4.
I moved into 47 Elderwood Lane in the spring, eager to leave behind the chaos of city life. The neighborhood was quiet, almost unnervingly so, with wide tree-lined streets, neatly trimmed hedges, and a kind of uniform stillness that felt like it had been pressed into the ground long ago and hadn't stirred since. It was the kind of place people described as idyllic, but I quickly learned that beneath the surface, Elderwood hid something rotten. My house was a modest 2-story with a peeling blue door and ivy curling around the porch posts. It was old, but charming, perfect for starting fresh. The realtor said it had been empty for years, but she didn't say why. I figured it was just one of those homes that couldn't hold on to owners. My neighbor, Mr. Langley, lived in the house directly next door, number 49. He was in his 60s, wiry and pale, always dressed in black slacks and a buttoned-up shirt even in the heat. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just watched. The first time I saw him, I was unpacking boxes in the kitchen when I caught movement through the window. He was standing in his yard, staring straight at my house, unmoving, hands clasped behind his back, like he was waiting for something. I raised a hand in greeting. He didn't respond, just turned and walked back inside. That should have been the first sign. The second came the next morning. I found a dead crow on my doorstep, neck snapped, wings splayed. Its eyes had been gouged out. I called animal control. They said it was probably a feral cat or a raccoon. I wanted to believe them. But the way it had been arranged, with its beak pointing toward Mr. Langley's house, felt like something else. I started noticing small things. Scratching sounds in the walls at night, like nails dragging along the plaster. Cold spots in rooms that should have been warm. The air sometimes carried the faintest smell of rot, like old meat or earth turned too long. At first, I blamed the plumbing, the insulation. But when I called a repairman, he checked everything and found nothing wrong. You ever get that feeling, he said while packing up his tools, that a house just doesn't want you here? That night, I heard footsteps upstairs. I lived alone. Grabbing a baseball bat, I climbed the stairs slowly, calling out, heart hammering. No answer. I checked every room. Nothing. But in the guest bedroom, I found something odd. On the window pane, in the condensation from the cool night air, was a handprint, small, childlike, pressed from the inside. I didn't sleep. The next day, I knocked on Mr. Langley's door. He answered immediately, like he'd been waiting. You're settling in, he said, more statement than question. Trying to, I said. Have you noticed anything strange around here? He looked at me for a long moment. It starts slowly, little things. You'll think you're imagining it, but you're not. What starts? He stepped out, lowering his voice. They call it the watching. It chooses someone new every few years. Always someone alone. Always someone who doesn't know what this neighborhood is built on. I felt cold. What do you mean? This street was built over the bones of something buried. A wrong never made right. There was a family here long ago. The elders. The land was theirs before anyone else arrived. The townspeople, they did something to them. Burned them out. Buried them alive. And now, they watch. That's just a story, I said, trying to smile. He didn't. They watched me once, but I survived. How? I didn't look back. Before I could press him, he shut the door. That night, I found muddy footprints in my hallway, small, barefoot, leading from the front door to the stairs. The door had been locked. The power went out around midnight. I lit candles and sat in the living room, trying to convince myself it was just a breaker issue. That's when I heard it. A voice, whispering, just above the sound of the wind. He sees you. I spun around. Nothing. But the whisper came again, this time from the kitchen. He's waiting. I stood slowly and walked toward the sound. The candlelight flickered violently as I passed the archway. Standing in the corner, just at the edge of the shadows, was a boy. Pale, hollow-eyed, dressed in tattered 19th century clothes. He looked straight at me, then lifted a hand and pointed toward the ceiling. I blinked, and he was gone. I ran upstairs. The attic door was open. I hadn't opened it since I moved in. The ladder groaned as I climbed. The attic was pitch black. I swept my flashlight across the space, heart pounding. Dust danced in the beam, old boxes, cobwebs. Then I saw it. Symbols carved into the floorboards, circles and runes and jagged marks. At the center, a single wooden chair, facing a mirror. The glass was cracked, but not broken. And in the reflection, I saw something that wasn't there. A man, tall, dressed in black, skin stretched too tightly across his face. His mouth was sewn shut. I turned, but the attic was empty. When I looked back, the reflection was smiling. I stumbled back down the ladder and slammed the attic door shut. I nailed it shut with whatever I could find. I didn't sleep. I didn't even sit. I just paced. In the morning, I went to confront Mr. Langley. His windows were all dark. The front door was cracked open. Inside, the house smelled like damp soil and something sweetly decayed. The wallpaper peeled in long strips. I called his name. No answer. I found him in the living room. He was dead. Hanging from the ceiling by his ankles, throat cut ear to ear, arms stretched out in a twisted crucifix, symbols carved into his chest. But it was his eyes that stopped me. They were missing. Hollow sockets, but tears still ran down his cheeks, and on the wall behind him, smeared in his own blood. She watches now. I called the police. They questioned me for hours, but there were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no DNA other than Langley's. They didn't believe me about the symbols. By the time they came back with a warrant, the walls were clean. They ruled it a suicide. I tried to leave, packed everything, loaded my car, and drove. But the highway never ended. I drove for hours, and every turnoff brought me back to Elderwood. The gas gauge never moved. The radio whispered static and fragments of nursery rhymes in reverse. I finally stopped and stepped out into the middle of the road, screamed into the trees. A girl stood at the edge of the forest, watching. That night, back at the house, the dreams began. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, the girl. Her face, pale, lips stitched like the man's in the mirror. She stood in my bedroom, just watching. Every time I tried to scream, she held a finger to her lips. She wanted silence. Then she spoke once. He watches through me, but I watch through you. I woke to find her sitting at the foot of my bed. I couldn't move. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead to mine, and then she was gone. Over the next week, I lost time. Hours disappeared. I'd wake up in the attic, sitting in the chair. My hands would be covered in dirt. I started seeing symbols in places I hadn't noticed, behind picture frames inside the pantry carved under the kitchen table. The house was changing. The walls pulsed slightly, like they were breathing. The floors creaked even when I wasn't walking. I stopped eating. I tried to burn the house down. I doused the place in gasoline, struck a match, but the fire wouldn't catch. The matchstick disintegrated in my hand like dust. The gasoline evaporated. The house would not let me go. Then, one night, I found a letter on my pillow. Old parchment, written in a hand not my own. You are the eyes now. I went to the mirror in the attic. My reflection was gone. In its place, her. She moved when I didn't. She smiled. That night, I understood what Langley meant when he said not to look back. They live in the space behind reflection, in silence, in stillness, in watching. Langley had survived them, barely. But he'd passed it on, to me. And now it was my turn. There's a new family in the house next door, a young couple pregnant. They wave when they see me. I don't wave back. Just watch. The girl appears at my window each night. Not inside, just a reflection. She's waiting. And when the time comes, I'll point. I won't look back.
Story number 5.
The old farmhouse on Barrow Hill had stood abandoned for over 30 years, its roof sagging like a broken back, its fields swallowed by wild grass and time. But the land was cheap, and I was desperate for escape. After losing my job, my apartment, and any sense of direction, I poured the last of my savings into buying that crumbling piece of earth and sky. I told myself I'd fix it up, make a life out here, grow something real. What I didn't know was that the land had already grown something, and it was still here. The locals in the nearby town of Winslow didn't say much when I brought up the farm. They exchanged glances, offered tight smiles, and told me I was brave. Not in the admiring kind of way. In the you're walking into your grave kind of way. Old man Crenshaw at the hardware store leaned in close as I bought lumber and nails and said, "If you hear whistling at night, don't look out your window. Just stay in bed, eyes shut." I laughed at him, thinking he was drunk or trying to scare the city guy. I was wrong. I moved in during early October. The house had no electricity, so I used lanterns. The first night was uneventful, save for the howling wind and the creaking wood complaining under my weight. The second night, I heard the whistling. It was soft at first, like wind slipping through tall grass, but it had a pattern, a melody. It circled the house. I stood at the window, trying to see through the dark, but there was only my own reflection staring back. I opened the door. Nothing. No wind. No crickets. Just silence. And then from the edge of the cornfield, a shadow moved. It was gone before I could focus, slipping behind the rows of dry stalks. I told myself it was an animal. Maybe a deer. On the third night, I found footprints. Bare feet, small, childlike, in the dirt just beneath my bedroom window. They didn't lead to the house. They led from it. I was shaken, but not yet scared. That came later. I decided to explore the fields the next morning. The corn was tall and brittle, clearly untouched for years. Something about it felt wrong. Too dry, too sharp, like it had grown from something other than soil, something deeper. I followed a narrow path that wound through the stalks. At the center of the field, I found a scarecrow. It stood crooked on a rotted wooden post, wearing a tattered brown coat, its head a burlap sack stitched with black thread. It had no eye, no eyes, no face, just that stitching, tight and pulsing like veins. I stepped closer, the wind stopped, and I swear it breathed. I stumbled back and ran for the house. That night, the whistling returned. This time, it came with footsteps. I sat in the dark, holding a rusted old shotgun I'd found in the cellar. The steps moved slowly around the house, dragging steps, uneven and heavy. They paused outside the door. The knob twisted. I held my breath, waiting for it to open. But it didn't. Instead, something tapped against the window 3 times. Then silence, sleep. The next morning, I found scratches on the door. Thin, long gouges like claws had scraped at the wood. I drove into town and asked Crenshaw what the hell was going on. He sighed and handed me a bottle of something dark and thick. "Pour that around your house," he said. "A ring. Don't break it. And whatever you do, don't talk to it. Don't listen if it speaks. And never go to the well." "What well?" He looked me dead in the eyes. "The one in the center of the cornfield. You'll see it. You won't want to, but you will." That night, I poured the liquid, smelled like old blood and iron, around the house. As I finished the ring, I heard the whistling again, but this time it stopped at the edge, like it couldn't cross. I thought I was safe. For 3 nights, nothing came. The air was heavy but quiet. I started to believe the worst was over, that maybe whatever haunted this place had given up. Until the 4th night. The sound of something screaming woke me up. Not human, animal. I grabbed the shotgun and ran outside. One of the deer I'd seen in the woods lay torn open on the porch. Its ribs cracked outward like fingers, heart missing, eyes still wide with terror. The ring I'd poured was broken. Something had dug through it. I barricaded the doors and windows, nailed every entrance shut, and still it found a way in. It started with whispers, from inside the walls, my name again and again, then laughter, childlike. On the 7th night, I dreamed of the well. I saw it clearly, in the middle of the cornfield, surrounded by bones. A voice called from it, soft and sweet. "Come down. It's safe here." I woke with dirt under my fingernails. I had sleepwalked halfway into the field. The scarecrow was gone. The post still stood, splintered and bloody. I ran into town, begged someone, anyone, to come with me. No one would. "They say the farm was cursed," a waitress told me. "Belonged to the Redcliffe family. Vanished in 1932. Not a trace. Some say they were taken. Others say they went willingly. offered themselves to whatever lives beneath. What lives beneath? I asked. She just shook her head. Back at the house, I found something waiting for me. A doll on the front steps, handmade, crude, stuffed with corn husks and bound in twine. Its head was a burlap sack, black thread for a mouth, and in place of eyes, 2 of mine. Photos, cut from old pictures I thought I'd lost. That night, the house groaned like it was alive. I locked myself in the bathroom, and from the hallway, I heard it. Footsteps, slow, coming closer. Then a voice. You broke the ring. It wasn't angry. It was hungry. The door shook once, twice, then silence. I waited until sunrise to move. I knew what I had to do. The well. I crossed the cornfield at dawn. The stalks seemed to part from me, guiding me inward. The air grew cold, the ground turned damp, and there it was. An old stone well choked with vines and dirt. Its mouth was wide and dark, breathing out a chill that made my bones ache. I heard singing from inside. A lullaby, one my mother used to hum. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. I stepped closer, peered inside. Something was looking back, not with eyes, but with awareness, with hunger. Hands reached up, pale, long-fingered. They didn't grab me, just beckoned, and I understood. It didn't want me. It wanted others. It had fed on the red cliffs, fed on animals, wanderers, anyone foolish enough to break the circle. But it was still hungry. It needed me to open the door, to invite. That night, I made a choice. I rebuilt the ring with salt, blood, and ash. I spoke old words, found in the Redcliffe Journal buried under the floorboards, words meant to bind, not banish. The house trembled, the ground split, and from beneath the foundation, something screamed. I didn't flinch. I finished the circle, and the screaming stopped. Now the house is quiet. The corn is dead, the well is sealed, but I don't leave. I can't, because if I do, the circle breaks. And it comes again. Sometimes at night, I hear it, the whistling, soft, far away, but getting closer, it waits, always for someone new.
Story number 6.
The first time I saw her, I was wheeling a patient down the west wing of St. Aurelius Hospital, a building so old it had the smell of dust worked into its very bones. The flickering fluorescent lights made the hallway look like it was breathing, and the night shift was always just a little too quiet. Her name was Clara, or so the records said. She'd been a patient there in 1963, died in room 616. They said it had been an accident, overdose of morphine after a surgery, but the older nurses whispered it was suicide. Some said she jumped out the window. Others said they found her in the elevator shaft, broken and smiling, but there was no record of that. I was on week 3 of my new job, a low-level orderly on the night shift. They didn't tell me about Clara in orientation. They told me how to clean up blood, how to talk gently to delusional patients, and how to wheel the dead down to the morgue with dignity. But they didn't tell me what to do when the elevators moved by themselves, or when doors opened down empty hallways. That night I was pushing Mr. Henley to imaging. He was 84, mostly nonverbal, recovering from a stroke. The hallway lights stuttered, and the old man began humming, a tune I didn't recognize. "Do you know that song, Mr. Henley?" I asked. He blinked at me slowly, then whispered, "She sings it when she walks." "Who does?" He looked past me, eyes wide with a child's fear. "The lady in white." I turned. There was no one behind us, but then I heard it, bare feet slapping gently against linoleum. Coming closer. I wheeled him faster. The rest of the night passed in a fog. I tried to shake it off, tried to be rational. This place messes with your head. You work 12-hour graveyard shifts in a haunted-looking hospital. Your brain starts filling in the blanks. But 2 nights later, I saw her again. It was just after 3 a.m., the dead hour. I was taking soiled linens down to the basement laundry chute. The elevator was taking forever, so I decided to take the stairs. Halfway down, I heard someone crying. A woman, soft sobs echoing up from below. I should have turned around. Every part of me screamed to get out, but something, curiosity, maybe stupidity, pulled me downward. The stairwell ended in a locked door to the sub-basement. Nobody used it anymore. I'd been told it was shut down after a fire in the 80s. But the crying was coming from behind that door. I pressed my ear against the metal. The sobs stopped. A whisper pressed against my mind like breath on glass. "Come see what they did to me." I ran. I didn't sleep that day. I watched documentaries about sleep paralysis and mass hallucination. I read about how hospitals, especially old ones, often have a kind of residual energy, anything to rationalize what I was experiencing. But then the disappearances started. It began with Janice, another orderly. She was supposed to relieve me around 6 a.m. She never showed. We all assumed she just quit mid-shift. Not uncommon. But when they checked her locker, her phone, keys, and purse were still there. Then a patient went missing, a teenage girl, her IV still dripping, her bed cold, no security footage of her leaving, just gone. One by one, staff started quitting. They wouldn't say why, just shook their heads, eyes hollow. I tried to leave too, but every time I packed up and got to the parking garage, my car wouldn't start. Even when I called for a ride, something always happened. Flat tires, dead phones, roads closed. It was as if the hospital wanted me there, so I stayed. And I started to investigate. I learned about the original wing of St. Aurelius, built in 1911. It used to be an asylum, back when they called mental illness female hysteria. Clara had been a nurse, not a patient. That part was a lie. She'd reported her supervisor, Dr. Elijah Varnum, for abusing patients. Electroshock, ice baths, lobotomies performed without anesthetic. He'd been hailed as a pioneer, but his journals told a different story. He believed suffering unlocked the soul's tether, and if the body could be brought close enough to death, one could hear what lies beyond. Clara had threatened to expose him, and then, just days later, she was dead, but not gone. I found the records in a crumbling storage room on the 7th floor, behind a fake wall in the nurse's break room. Notes, photos, testimonies, hidden for decades. And I found something else, a key, brass, heavy, with the number 6116 engraved on it. Room 6116 had been locked since the 70s. Off limits. No one went near it. The door was nailed shut, black plastic stretched over it like skin. But I had the key. I waited until the floor was quiet. 4:13 a.m. When I opened the door, the first thing I noticed was the smell, like burnt hair and sour milk. The room was small, windowless. There was a cot, rusted and sunken in the middle. Leather straps still hung from the sides. The walls were covered in writing, scratched into the paint, the plaster, even the floor. He hears through me. I saw her walk into the mirror. I am not dead, I am waiting. In the far corner was a broken mirror, jagged like a cracked smile, and in it, I saw her, Clara. Her face was bruised, stitched at the lips, her eyes leaking blood. She reached out from the glass, and I stepped backward, but my reflection didn't. It stared at me, smiled, then stepped forward and touched the inside of the glass. I fled. But from that night on, things changed. Mirrors wouldn't reflect me right. Sometimes I'd look and see myself standing still while I moved. Other times, I saw places I wasn't in, old hospital rooms, surgeries mid-operation, people screaming without sound. I started seeing Clara more in my peripheral vision, behind me in dark windows, but she wasn't haunting me. She was warning me. She showed me dreams, flashbacks, her death, the experiments, how Varnum had created a ritual to trap a soul in between. Clara had tried to stop it, and now she was stuck, and I had taken her place. The hospital was a feeding ground. Every few decades, it needed a new soul to anchor the veil. Varnum had found a way to pierce reality, to look beyond, but it came at a cost. Someone had to stay. Clara had been the first. Now it was my turn. On my last night, I decided to end it. I gathered what I needed, the old journals, Clara's files, the key. I planned to burn room 616, destroy the tether, free her, free me. I snuck in through the maintenance corridor. The room looked different this time, alive. The walls pulsed, the mirror rippled like water. I poured gasoline, lit the match. The fire screamed, not roared. Screamed, voices poured from the walls, Clara's, Varnum's, my own. The mirror shattered, and something stepped out. Not Clara. Something wearing her face, taller, bent wrong. Its mouth opened wider than it should, and inside were teeth like nails. Nails, it whispered. Now you see, and lunged. I don't remember escaping. I woke up in the ER, surrounded by doctors I didn't recognize. They told me there'd been a fire, that I'd inhaled smoke. Room 16 was gone. The floor collapsed. No records remain. They tried to say I imagined it. But sometimes in the hospital lobby, I hear a lullaby. Soft, familiar, and the elevator opens by itself. Always empty, always going to the 6th floor. I don't work there anymore, but I can't go far. Every mirror shows something different now. Every reflection is just a little off. And sometimes when I sleep, I dream of the hospital. But I'm not walking the halls. I'm watching them from inside the glass, waiting. Because one day, someone else will turn that key, and I'll be free.
Story number 7.
I checked into the Ashcroft Grand Hotel on a storm-churned October evening, dragging a duffel bag and a heart full of exhaustion behind me. I had been on the road for days, chasing down stories for a travel documentary series I was producing about haunted places across the country. The Ashcroft was a legend among the ghost hunting community, an opulent relic built in 1894, shuttered in the 80s, and only recently reopened under new ownership. The bones of the place were beautiful, but there were rumors that something had been left behind, something that never checked out. As I stepped into the grand lobby, the place greeted me with velvet silence, faded wallpaper curled at the edges, chandeliers hung like frozen tears. There was no music, just the faint hum of electricity and the tapping of rain against the high, arched windows. The man at the front desk was pale, lanky, and dressed in a crimson vest that looked 50 years old. He didn't greet me with a smile, just asked for my name in a voice dry as dust. "James Hallwell," I said, placing my ID on the counter. He took it with gloved hands, examining it for longer than necessary, then handed me an actual brass key. No key card. "Room 313, he said. "Top floor, east wing." "Elevators?" He didn't answer, just turned away. I should have taken that as a warning. The elevator was ancient, with an iron gate and a floor that groaned with every inch it rose. The mirror inside was clouded, but I caught my reflection, just long enough to notice that something was wrong. My expression was delayed, just slightly, like whatever was in the mirror was pretending to be me. I blinked, and it was gone. Room 313 was at the far end of the hallway, past thick floral carpets that muffled every footstep and wallpaper patterns that seemed to shimmer in the corners of your eyes. My door opened with a heavy clunk, revealing a suite preserved in time. Velvet armchairs, a fireplace filled with ash. The air smelled of old wood and roses left too long in water. I set down my bag, unpacked the tripod and camera gear, and began setting up to record some B-roll footage. Shadows twisted in the viewfinder even when nothing moved. I dismissed it as dust or lens distortion. That first night, I heard whispers. They began around 2:30 a.m., threading through the air like smoke. At first, I thought it was coming from the room next to mine, but as I pressed my ear to the wall, I realized something chilling. The room beside mine was silent. The voices were inside my room. I turned on every light, checked under the bed, the closet, even the armoire in the corner. Nothing. But as I backed away from the closet, I caught a movement in the mirror on the wall behind me. A woman, standing directly behind me. I spun. No one. But the mirror still showed her. Pale skin, dark eyes, and a mouth sewn shut with black thread. The lights flickered and cut out. For a full minute, I stood frozen in absolute darkness. I couldn't hear the rain anymore. Couldn't even hear my breathing. Just nothing. A void. When the lights came back, the mirror was shattered. My reflection was nowhere to be found. I left the room and tried to find help. The front desk was empty, the lobby abandoned. Not even the soft whir of air vents. I tried the phone. Dead line. Tried my cell. No signal. Outside, the rain was still falling, but the city beyond the hotel windows was black. Not dim. Not quiet. Gone. The world ended at the glass. I tried the front doors. They wouldn't open. I pounded on them, shouted. No answer. I turned back, and the hotel had changed. The lobby was deeper, wider. A second staircase I hadn't noticed before spiraled upward into darkness. The chandeliers were lower, flickering with candlelight instead of bulbs. Furniture that had been threadbare and dusty now looked new, polished, alive. I stepped backward. The air behind me was freezing. I turned. A man stood a foot away from me, dressed in a tuxedo too clean for the modern age. His eyes were black, his mouth a slit that slowly widened into an impossibly large grin. "Welcome back, Mr. Hallwell," he said, though I had never been here before. No," I stammered. "This isn't right," he bowed slightly. "Everything is as it was. Everything is as it must be." And he vanished. I ran, up the stairs, back to room 313. But it wasn't my room anymore. It was hers. Blood stained the wallpaper, seeping like ink into the floral designs. The window was cracked open, letting in a cold wind and the distant sound of someone screaming. A woman, again and again. The bed was no longer made. Something was under the sheets. I pulled them back. A dress, laid out perfectly, a white, old-fashioned gown, the kind brides wore in the early 20th century. And inside the neckline, still attached to the collar, was a head. A woman's head, eyes open, watching me. I stumbled back, fell, and hit the floor. The head rolled off the bed and landed face up next to me. The mouth opened. "Get out!" I don't remember how long I screamed. I blacked out. I woke up the next morning in my bed. The same velvet chairs, the same fireplace. No blood, no head, just the lingering scent of roses and rot. I packed my things and ran to the front desk. The man behind the counter was different now. Young, smiling, wearing a modern polo shirt with the hotel logo. He looked puzzled. "You're checking out already, sir? You just arrived." I stared at him. "The night manager. Pale guy. Crimson vest." He laughed. "I'm the only night manager. I've been here all week." He showed me the security footage. There was no one else at the desk the night before. Worse, there was no footage of me ever checking in. No footage of room 313 being occupied. The room wasn't even in their registry. "There is no 3113, he said, tilting his head. "Top floor ends at 312. "Are you feeling all right?" I demanded to go up with him. Dragged him to the third floor. Sure enough, 3112 was the last door. A smooth, uninterrupted wall stretched where 313 should have been. But I still had the key. I showed it to him. He looked uneasy, said he'd never seen one like it. Suggested maybe I got it from the antique shop in town. I left. Drove until my gas tank ran low. Got a new hotel 2 states over, tried to sleep. But the dreams came. The woman, the stitched mouth, the endless hallways that twisted on themselves, and the whispers. Always the whispers. Eventually, I dug deeper into the Ashcrofts' history, found old blueprints, archived news articles, forgotten police reports. Room 313 had existed once. In 1932, a bride named Eleanor Whitcomb checked in the night before her wedding. She was found dead in the bathtub the next morning. Suicide, they claimed. Slit wrists. But her body showed signs of struggle. Her tongue had been cut out, her mouth sewn shut. No one was ever charged. The room was sealed, erased. But some doors don't stay closed, and some spirits don't forget. I destroyed the footage I filmed there. I deleted the notes, the audio logs, the journal entries. But I still have the key. And every now and then, no matter where I stay, I hear the click of an old brass lock turning just beyond the wall. I see the wallpaper peel back. I feel the temperature drop. Sometimes the hotel I'm in has a room 313. Sometimes it doesn't. But either way, she always finds me. Last night, I checked into a small inn in Vermont. No third floor, only 6 rooms. No room 313. But when I woke up in the night, the numbers on my door had changed. 313. I opened it, and behind it was the hallway from Ashcroft. Velvet carpet, fading wallpaper, a mirror at the end with no reflection. I stepped back and slammed it shut. It wouldn't lock. She's coming. I don't know what she wants, revenge, justice, escape, but I know she won't stop. Not until I join her, or set her free. If you ever find yourself in a hotel late at night and you hear someone whisper your name through the air vents, don't answer. Don't look in the mirror. And for the love of God, never use a brass key.
Story number 8.
It was just another Friday night in Los Angeles. I'd finished a long shift at my editing job downtown and was too drained to deal with the buses or the metro. So I opened the Uber app and requested a ride. I didn't think twice about it. Everyone uses Uber. It's convenient, reliable, safe, right? My driver's name was Jared. 5-star rating, black Honda Accord. The app said he'd be outside in 3 minutes. I watched the little car icon inch toward my apartment on the screen. When it arrived, I noticed something immediately. The windows were tinted. Really tinted. I couldn't see inside, which was a little off, but not unheard of. When I opened the back door, the interior was pitch black. No dome light turned on. "Hey, is this Jared?" I asked, leaning in. A voice responded. Male. Flat. "Yes. Melissa?" I nodded and got in. The car smelled like stale cologne and something else, something metallic and sweet beneath it. The doors locked the second I pulled them closed. I told myself not to be paranoid. Maybe he was just weird. Maybe the car had issues. "Where we headed?" he asked, though the address was already in the app. I repeated it anyway. "Oakwood and 9th. "Right," he said. No smile, no small talk. We pulled away from the curb. At first, everything seemed normal. He drove smooth, obeyed traffic laws. But after a few blocks, I noticed he took a wrong turn. Hey, this isn't the way." "Shortcut," he said flatly. I watched the Uber app. The route it was tracking was now totally off. My phone still showed the ride in progress, but the location dot had stopped following us. The map froze. "I think the GPS is messed up," I said. "Maybe you should... No signal out here." That's when I looked out the window and realized we were nowhere near downtown anymore. He'd taken us into an industrial area, abandoned warehouses, cracked pavement, the occasional flickering street lamp. "Seriously, where are we going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He didn't answer. I tapped the door lock. Nothing. Tried the handle, still locked. "Let me out," I said louder. "This isn't my stop." He said something then, under his breath. It sounded like, "They never learn." I grabbed my phone and tried to call 911, but it wouldn't connect. No service. That's when the lights in the car cut out. Total blackness. I heard the driver whispering. I couldn't understand the words. They weren't in English. The air grew cold like a freezer door had opened inside the car. My breath fogged in front of me. Then I saw it in the rearview mirror. Not a reflection. Something else. A face. Gaunt. Pale. Its eyes were black pits, and its mouth was wide open in a silent scream. I looked into the front seat. Jared wasn't there anymore. The driver's seat was empty, but the car kept moving. I screamed and kicked the door, hit the window with my elbow, but it wouldn't break. I searched the floor for anything, and my hand brushed against something wet. I looked down. There was a jacket soaked in blood. I kicked harder, and the car started to slow. Not stop, just slow. The voice came again, this time from inside the car. "Everywhere. You're not supposed to look. Now you've seen. Now you're his." And then the world shifted. I don't know how else to describe it. The street outside blurred, melted into something else. Instead of buildings, I saw trees. Dead, leafless trees. And the road became narrow, cracked, overgrown. A forest, but not a real one. The trees had eyes. They blinked as we passed. Whispers filled the air, louder now. Still in that language I couldn't understand, but I could feel the meaning. "You don't belong here." But "now you do. Now you do." The car pulled to a stop. The door beside me unlocked with a click. I hesitated. I didn't want to get out, but staying inside felt worse. When I stepped out, the forest swallowed me. No stars, no moon, just that bone-pale light from nowhere. The car vanished behind me. I was alone. For a while I wandered. The ground crunched under my feet like it was made of glass. I passed broken signs with no letters, a swing set hanging from a tree branch, and eventually a single wooden house that looked older than time. The door was open. Inside was a small room, empty except for a mirror. And in the mirror, I saw the car again. The back seat. Me, sitting there, screaming. I was still inside. I turned away, but I was still there. Trapped. That's when I understood the ride never ended, and it never will. Now, every once in a while, when I'm drifting off to sleep, I feel the hum of an engine beneath me. Smell the cologne, hear the locks click shut. The ride always restarts. I don't know how long I've been here. Days, years. Time doesn't work the same anymore. But if you ever call an Uber late at night and a black Honda pulls up with tinted windows, don't get in, even if the app says it's your driver, especially if the driver doesn't speak. And if you do get in, whatever you do, don't look in the rearview mirror, because if you see it, you're next.
Story number 9.
The first time Officer Marcus Hale heard the name Black Hollow, he was a rookie, fresh out of the academy, riding shotgun with an older partner who chewed tobacco and talked about death the way people talk about traffic. They were patrolling the outskirts of their sleepy southern town, Crestwood, when a call crackled over the radio. Disturbance, possible trespasser, abandoned residence near Black Hollow Road. His partner went quiet, didn't touch the wheel, just stared ahead. "You ever heard of Black Hollow?" he asked Marcus. "No, why?" His partner didn't answer. He turned the cruiser around and drove in silence. When they arrived, it was just a rusted gate overrun with vines, a gravel path curling into dense woods, and the decaying bones of what must have once been a plantation house deep in the trees. Nothing there, just cold air and the sense that the forest itself was holding its breath. "Forget it," his partner muttered, backing the car up. "Nothing good ever comes out of Black Hollow." That was 10 years ago. His partner died in his sleep 2 months later. Heart attack. The kind the coroner said looked more like fear than failure. Marcus eventually forgot about Black Hollow until the case of Rachel Dobbs. She was 17, vanished after a party one Friday night. Her friends said she was headed home. She never made it. No phone, no signals, no clues. Just a car, found abandoned on the edge of Black Hollow Road. Marcus was the officer who found it. Something about it felt wrong immediately. The car door was open. Headlights still on, battery long dead. Her purse was in the front seat, but the interior smelled like sulfur and cold metal. On the dashboard, etched into the dust with a fingertip, was a single word: hollow. The chief said it was probably a runaway, that maybe she'd gotten lost. But Marcus didn't buy it. He remembered the way the trees bent unnaturally around that place, the way his partner had gone pale just hearing the name. He started digging. Black Hollow, as it turned out, wasn't just a nickname. The land had history, violent history. The plantation that once stood there burned to the ground in 1863. Locals claimed it was cursed ground, that the owner, Elijah Craven, a cruel and violent man, had been hanged by his own slaves after years of torment. The story went that before they killed him, he made a pact, sold his soul to something deep in the woods, said he'd come back, said the land would always belong to him. Over the next 100 years, dozens of disappearances were linked to that stretch of road. Teens, hikers, even a few police officers, all brushed off as missing persons with no official ties. But there was a pattern. Every case had a connection to the land. Marcus brought it up at the precinct, jokingly at first, but when he mentioned the name Elijah Craven, two of the older officers went completely silent. One of them pulled him aside and said, "Don't go near that place, Hale. Sir, not even in daylight. People go missing out there and don't come back, and if they do, they're not right, not human anymore." But Marcus couldn't let it go. Rachel's parents were destroyed. Every time he saw her missing poster on the wall, he felt like something was gnawing at his chest. He started reviewing the dash cam footage from that night. It cut out shortly before arriving near Black Hollow Road. But right before the screen turned to static, he saw something. A tall figure standing in the middle of the road, arms stretched out, face blurred, body slightly wrong, like it didn't belong in the frame. He enhanced it, zoomed in, its eyes were glowing white. He got permission to revisit the scene. Brought a rookie partner this time, Jenna Reyes. Tough girl, sharp shooter, had a sense for weird cases and a mouth that didn't quit. As they walked into the woods, Marcus explained the history. Jenna laughed it off at first, but he noticed how quiet she got when they reached the gate. Someone or something had carved a new message into the metal. "She's not yours." Jenna raised her weapon. "What the hell is this?" "Let's keep moving," Marcus muttered. They found the ruins of the old plantation deeper in, barely a frame left. Charred wood, rusted iron gates, and a stone staircase that led to nowhere. But the air, it felt thick, like walking underwater. And somewhere distant they heard a girl humming, a soft, tuneless melody. "Rachel," Marcus called out. The humming stopped. Then footsteps. Behind them. They spun around, flashlights cutting through the trees, but there was no one. Just shifting shadows and the sound of wind that didn't match the motion of the leaves. Then the screaming started. Rachel's voice. Help me, please," echoing from all around them. Jenna took off toward the sound, and Marcus chased her. But the woods warped. The path they ran curved back into itself. Trees they'd passed already appeared again, time fractured. Then the forest opened up, and they found themselves back at the ruins, except now the plantation house stood whole again, glowing with candlelight, windows pulsing like beating hearts. It was there, somehow. Jenna whispered, "This isn't possible. I don't think we're in Crestwood anymore." They approached the porch. As soon as Marcus stepped onto the first step, the door creaked open on its own. Inside was a long hallway, candles lit on either side. The walls bled. The portraits along the corridor depicted warped, stretched faces, people who were trying to scream but had no mouths. They moved forward. At the end of the hallway, they found her. Rachel, sitting on a chair, pale, thin, eyes glazed, her mouth sewn shut with what looked like barbed wire. She looked up at them, tears streaking her cheeks. Jenna rushed forward, but something slammed the door shut behind them. Marcus raised his weapon. "Get back! We're police!" A voice echoed from upstairs. "I know, I've been expecting you." A figure descended the staircase slowly. He wore a tattered black coat, his face gaunt, skin gray like old paper. His eyes glowed like dying coals. "Elijah Craven," Marcus whispered. Craven smiled. "The badge means nothing here, boy. This land is mine. Always has been. You came looking for her, but she called you. You don't find Black Hollow. It finds you." Jenna fired a shot. The bullet passed through him like smoke. "I am not alive," he said, "and neither is she." Rachel whimpered in the chair. Marcus rushed forward, cutting the wires from her mouth. She gasped, blood spilling from her lips. "He feeds on souls," she whispered. "He keeps them. You can't let him keep me." Craven reached out a hand, and the walls rippled like water. The air grew thick with screams. Dozens of voices trapped, echoing from behind the walls. Faces stretched from the wood, pressing against the grain as if trying to break free. Jenna screamed as a hand reached out and grabbed her ankle, dragging her toward the floor. Marcus fired, breaking the grip. "We have to run," he shouted, but Rachel pointed to the fireplace. "Burn the heart, it's behind the bricks." "What?" "That's how he stays. His heart's hidden. He tore it out and hid it." "Burn it. Now." The floor started to collapse as Craven advanced, his face twisting into something demonic, horns breaking through his skull, a second mouth opening beneath the first, filled with rows of jagged teeth. Jenna and Marcus tore at the bricks while Rachel screamed. Behind the hearth, buried in black ash, was a pulsating, fleshy mass. Craven's heart. Marcus grabbed it. It moved in his hands, beating against his grip. He tossed it into the flames. The scream that followed wasn't human. Craven burst into flame, his body folding in on itself, dragged downward by hands reaching up from the floor. Charred, skeletal things that pulled him into the abyss. The walls collapsed. The house began to burn. Marcus grabbed Rachel and Jenna, dragging them through the smoke as the plantation house disappeared behind them. When they crossed the threshold of the woods, it was morning. The house was gone. The ruins were ruins again. Silent, empty. Rachel was real, alive, shaking, but her eyes had changed. Something inside her was lost in that place. Something she'd never get back. Jenna transferred precincts 2 weeks later, moved to Arizona, said she never wanted to see a tree again. Marcus stayed in Crestwood. He still works the same beat. But sometimes when he's alone on night patrol, the radio picks up static, a voice whispering his name, a girl humming a song with no tune, a scream that never echoes right. And sometimes he sees a black gate at the edge of the woods, even though it was torn down years ago. He drives past it every time, but he knows one day he'll stop. One day it'll call again, and next time it won't let him leave.
Story number 10.
It started the first night I was left alone in our new house. We had just moved to a small town in northern Maine, the kind of place where neighbors wave from their porches but keep their blinds drawn at night. My parents had gone away for the weekend to visit my aunt in Vermont, and I stayed behind. I was 17, responsible enough, they figured, and honestly, I was looking forward to having the place to myself. It was a 2-story colonial built in the 1800s, nestled between thick woods and the nearest neighbor being a quarter-mile down the road. The real estate agent called it charming and historic. I called it creaky and cold. There was something about the way the wind moved through the halls, like the house was breathing. Friday night passed quietly enough. I made frozen pizza, watched a horror movie because I thought I was brave, and dozed off on the couch. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to the sound of footsteps upstairs. Slow, measured, not the kind of sound an old house makes when it settles. I muted the TV and listened. Nothing, just the wind. I grabbed a flashlight and crept up the stairs, every step groaning under my weight. My bedroom door was open the way I left it. The guest room was empty. The attic door was closed. Nothing looked disturbed, but something felt off. I slept with the light on. Saturday evening, it got worse. I was FaceTiming my friend Chloe when the screen glitched. Just for a second, her face froze, eyes wide, mouth agape, like something had startled her. Then the screen went black. I texted her. "What happened?" "What do you mean?" "You froze." "No, you did. You were talking and then just stopped. Thought you were joking." "But are you okay?" Yeah. "Weird. Your screen looks strange. For a second, I thought I saw someone behind you." I spun around. Nobody was there. I told her it was just a weird connection issue and hung up soon after. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I checked the front door. Locked. The back door. Locked. Windows. Locked. I tried to calm down with music. I put on a playlist and started cleaning to distract myself. As I dusted the bookshelf in the living room, one of the volumes, a thick, leather-bound book that I hadn't noticed before, fell to the floor. It was too heavy to have been perched so loosely. I picked it up. It didn't have a title, just an embossed symbol on the cover, a circle of thorns around a single eye. Inside, the pages were handwritten in black ink, a mix of Latin, symbols, and drawings, rituals, offerings, warnings. One page had my house's floor plan drawn in meticulous detail. On another, there was a name scrawled over and over again in jagged script, Elior. I closed the book and stuffed it back on the shelf. But as I did, I saw something scrawled on the wall behind the books. Not visible unless the books were moved. It looked like it had been etched into the wall with a knife. "Don't stay alone." That night, it escalated. At 3:13 a.m., I woke up to the sound of someone breathing. Not just breathing, rasping, shallow, wet gasps. It was right next to my ear. I bolted upright. My bedroom was empty. But the mirror across the room wasn't reflecting me. Instead, it showed a figure standing behind where I should have been. Tall, draped in shadow, long fingers wrapped around the edges of the glass. Its face was blurred, as if the mirror refused to remember it. I screamed. The lights flickered. The door slammed shut. I ran at it, trying to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Behind me, I heard the mirror crack. Then the breathing was inside the room again. I turned and saw nothing, but the temperature had dropped. My breath fogged the air. Then the door swung open on its own. I ran downstairs and stayed in the brightly lit kitchen the rest of the night, gripping a knife with both hands, watching the hallway for movement. By sunrise, everything was silent again. I called my mom, told her I wasn't feeling well. She said they'd try to come home early. I didn't tell her what happened. I didn't want her to think I was losing it. But I had to know what was going on. I pulled the strange book back out and started reading. It wasn't just rituals. It was a record. Someone had lived in this house before, a woman named Eleanor Redden. In 1901, she wrote that her son, Elior, had vanished in the woods behind the house. Days later, he returned, but changed. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat. He just stood in front of mirrors, staring. She began recording strange events, the house whispering, lights flickering, her son walking the halls at night in a trance. She said the thing that returned was not her child. She called it a mirror-born, a reflection that had taken her son's place. The book ended with a single line, "The mirror holds the gate. It will take another if left alone." I suddenly remembered every time I'd glanced into the mirror and felt uneasy. Every night I'd walked by and avoided my own reflection without realizing it. It wasn't me I was afraid of. It was what might be watching from the other side. That night I covered every mirror in the house with sheets. All except one. The tall mirror in the hallway was bolted to the wall, too heavy to move. I tried draping a cloth over it, but it kept slipping off, like something was pulling it down. At midnight, the lights went out. The temperature dropped again, and the humming began. A child's lullaby, off-key and slow. It drifted from the upstairs hallway, echoing softly through the dark. I stood at the base of the stairs, flashlight trembling in my grip. Something moved at the top. A shape, tall, slender. "Who's there?" I asked. The humming stopped, then slowly the shape turned. Its face was smooth, featureless, skin like porcelain. Where the eyes should have been, there were two deep, black voids. It pointed to the mirror. I backed up. "No, I'm not." The figure opened its mouth wide, too wide, and screamed. The sound wasn't like anything I've heard, a shriek of glass and metal, of mirrors shattering in every direction. The hallway mirror rippled like water, and from its surface, a hand reached out. Pale, inhuman. I ran. The stairs buckled under me. The walls shifted, stretching outward as if the house were becoming something else. I made it to the kitchen, pulled open a drawer, and grabbed the hammer. There was only one way to stop it. I ran to the hallway, raised the hammer, and brought it down on the mirror. Crack. A spiderweb of fractures. The mirror groaned. I hit it again. It screamed, and from the shards, blood began to leak. I hit it again and again until the mirror shattered completely. A gust of wind blasted from the frame, slamming me into the opposite wall. The hallway filled with darkness, dense and alive, and from it the figure stepped out. But it was no longer humanoid. It was a shadow wrapped in skin, twisting, shifting, mouth open in silent laughter. It surged toward me, and then light. Blinding, hot light. The front door burst open. My parents, the headlights of their car pouring into the hallway, burning the shadow to smoke. It recoiled, screeching, and vanished into the fragments of the broken mirror. Everything went silent. They rushed in, yelling my name. The house returned to normal. The lights came back on, the warmth returned, the mirror was just glass on the floor. I told them everything. They believed me. Because as we cleaned up, my mom noticed something etched into the wall behind the broken frame. "Thank you." Eleanor's handwriting. We moved out the next week. The house was abandoned, and later, condemned. But sometimes I dream about it. The hallway, the mirror, and Elior still trapped on the other side, watching, waiting, because that mirror was just one gate. And there are mirrors everywhere.